Okay. 11 o'clock. The news conference supposed to be against spraying across the street at the Crown Plaza. They announced a media release late last night. So I really don't think there'll be that many people because I don't see no media here. So the issue with spraying and it's a concern, but it's not a concern because it can't be that dangerous because the Irving insists to spray beside Turtle Creek and Mountain. 100,000 people are getting the water from Turtle Creek, and the Irving's, the government doesn't seem to really, the Environment Department didn't give a permit this year for the Irving to spray beside the only drinking water in Mountain. So, are people concerned? People should be, because, you know, the spraying, what's so important to spray beside a drinking reservoir that serves 100,000 people? I don't get it. But anyway, so they have a news conference, should be starting now. I'm just going to keep this video on. I predict, I don't know, media, maybe one person. There's no media here, I don't see anybody. Maybe what, 10, 15 people there? It was announced late last night. So let's see. Let's see how it goes. The legislators right there, maybe some politician there, who knows? For the spraying?
You're close.
I'm close. Okay, thank you. 10, 15 people?
Vlogger maybe. I thought you weren't going to come.
I thought your conference would start. That's why I come late.
No, we had to wait for you.
I predicted 10 people. There's 5. Green Party. That's good. Go on, start it. Might as well now.
The usual people.
Usual people. Oh, hold it. There's one. Okay, we got the Irvings here. That's good. I'm sorry. We got the Daily Gleaner. We'll be polite.
Global, I don't know.
Global. Nobody outside.
The one with the global news.
She's not here. She moved. Adrian.
But she said email.
Radio Canada, come on. That's all right. The Irving's going to take care of this, right, Michael? You could tell me to, you know what. Okay, let's
For a
go.
second, it took me a second to remember.
There's not, and no editing here. It's a good part.
All right, so I guess, shall we just get started?
Yes.
Might as well.
Sure.
Okay, so I'll start and then Dawn might just burn. Okay, so welcome everyone and thank you for attending. Stop Spraying New Brunswick began the movement to stop herbicide spraying on public lands 3 years ago, and the movement has enormous support from New Brunswickers. When we say public lands, we are talking about public or crown forests, NB Power right-of-ways, Mactaquac Dam, power stations, CN Rail, they're spraying this year, and Base Gagetown. In the past year alone, we have grown tremendously. One way to measure our support is the size of our very active Facebook group of 18,000 people, 35,000 written petition signatures collected by regular New Brunswickers all over the province, thousands of signs and bumper stickers sold, and they're put up all over the place as well. This movement has been truly grassroots from the beginning, which is illustrated by the fact that we have many local volunteers that have been on the ground in small communities from the beginning. So the interesting thing about this movement is that it's driven by individual volunteers. It's not existing community groups that have taken this on necessarily. It's individual people that we never knew were activists or anything, And so, you know, we have a large support base in the rural communities. SSNB now has written commitments from 3 New Brunswick political parties. The New Brunswick Green Party, the People's Alliance Party, and the NB-NDP have all committed to stop herbicide spraying in New Brunswick. August has arrived and the herbicide spraying program is underway. So now we have 4 herbicide spraying programs that have been going. We've got NB Power, which started early June, CN Rail, which started the end of May, Base Gagetown, which started July 15th, and then the Forest Herbicide Spray Program that is about to start. Stop Spraying New Brunswick hereby would like to highlight that the NB taxpayers are supporting this activity. So it's private companies that are getting $2.8 million from taxpayers to do the spraying. And every year we are paying about this amount. It actually gets more, it's more every year, but this is what we paid in 2017. So we're asking voters, are you interested in doing this again after the election? Or are you going to elect people that will not cause your money to go to this spray program? Just think about what you could have if you didn't spend it on this spray program. You could have other things in your riding, in your community, and there'd be more jobs, because this spray program doesn't actually give many jobs at all. Don, did you want to add something to that?
Sure. Should we talk about our report card?
Yes.
So, what we did this year was decide to issue a report card for the 58th legislature. Specifically, what we were talking about is what the political parties have done on our issue in terms of stopping spraying. Despite having 35,000 people sign the petition, the largest petition in the history of New Brunswick, nothing has been enacted in the last legislature. So what we did was we gave out marks for each political party. The Liberal Party, who has not really done anything in terms of this issue, despite having 35,000 signatures, gets a solid F. The Progressive Conservatives put in a motion which would have essentially stopped spraying for a period of review, but it was dependent on the time of the legislature. So although it was definitely a step in the right direction, and there was actually a motion tabled to stop spraying, the impact of this would have been almost nothing, because it would have gone for a period of review at best, and then things would have started in motion 9 months later when the spraying program had restarted. So the only thing that it was going to do was at least to have some sort of official report tabled to the legislature, and the Liberals put in conditions which essentially made it entirely moot. The Green Party got an F because they still haven't put a bill through that was enable us to stop spraying, but they do get a B- in terms of, at least David has consistently talked about the issue. So he's talked about it. There wasn't a specific motion put in by the Greens that dealt with this, but David's been the only one who strongly has come out. We were going to make the B- a bit blurry because of some optometry issues, but we've decided that, Greens have gotten the highest marks from us in terms of this report card. Of course, we can't report on the parties who are not in the legislature. So although we've had strong support from the People's Alliance and we've had written commitments from the NB-NDP, they're not yet in the legislature, so we can't really rate their legislative performance, which we will hopefully in the next legislature. Yeah.
Okay, so, so we have a little bit of positive things that have happened, more on a municipal level. So Spraying New Brunswick has enjoyed support from municipal leaders, such as the Petitcodiac Mayor Gerald Gauguin and Moncton Mayor Don Arnold, who have been very supportive of our issue and have spoken out. And Don Arnold was in the news just recently because she was very happy that the watershed, the Turtle Creek watershed, is not being sprayed this season. Other municipalities that support us are Sackville, Cap-Pelé, Tidehead, Paquetteville, Tracadie, and Miscou. So many other communities, the ones I just mentioned, have received presentations from us. We've been invited to speak at city council meetings by local residents. So we didn't ask to be on the agenda. We were put on the agenda by local residents. So in this election year, we've got 7 weeks to see what might happen. I'm just going to see if I missed anything. I guess we are going to gear up to have materials ready for our supporters, because our supporters are this is a big issue for them. So I think for them, their vote will probably hinge on where our candidate stands. So we're going to prepare a toolkit for our supporters that will make it easier for them to rank and rate the candidates as they come to the door or when they go to candidate meetings. So that they can have like check sheets, with questions on it that they can check mark, they can evaluate the candidates and then make up their mind. We will continue, of course, to sell signs and bumper stickers, and we're really, again, getting a ton of sales just in the last few weeks. We're just selling a lot of signs again. So this issue is heating up again, of course, because the forestry season, spray season has started. And we sincerely hope that we will have a legislature of a different composition that's going to be more amenable to stop the spraying of New Brunswick.
And to pass a motion through that will ban the spraying. It's just that simple, is that unless the legislature is going to act on this, we're going to continually have the same process of 1/3 of all the spraying in Canada occurs here in New Brunswick on the Crown land. And how long can this go on? It's clear that there is a very strong support for this in the province, and yet nothing has happened. So we really hope that in the next legislature, we're going to see different people who are going to enact a piece of legislation that will ban spraying in New Brunswick. Any questions?
What would be the alternative to spraying?
Well, the alternative that we're talking about is that companies that are doing, they have manual cutting activities. They've calculated that 1,000 jobs could be created if people were hired to do the job rather than the herbicide spraying planes. So there would be more jobs created just by switching it up and just doing that instead of doing the herbicide spraying.
And changing the forestry practices.
Yes,
so
of course.
Go away from clear cutting and go back to the traditional way of processing wood. I mean, what we've seen is there really is no economic benefit to the way that New Brunswick is being with its forestry. Right? The jobs are still continuing to bleed out. Companies can only make this work by the province essentially paying them to take the wood. So we don't see any big economic benefit to the current forestry practices. The spraying is a part of that. Right? You spray because you don't want any hardwoods to grow. And what we've seen is look at the impact on wildlife and other things. This is why we have such strong support in the province. That people are fed up with essentially the disappearance of the wildlife in New Brunswick.
You said you had written commitment from the three parties.
Yeah.
Yes.
What kind of time frame are you looking at? Did they tell you that they could?
Well, there's still, some of them are still working on their details of their policies.
Mm-hmm.
The Green Party has been saying forever that this is, that they would, of course, look at the Forestry Act as well, and, the whole forestry management paradigm in New Brunswick needs to change. Right now, we're losing, from what I've been told by experts, about $100 million a year on our forestry. So the largest resource in New Brunswick is not generating income for taxpayers. So this spraying issue is part of a bigger forestry issue. The people got upset about this part of the forestry because they're seeing what the spraying is doing. It's diminishing biodiversity. They're seeing the evidence of it in the woods all the time. They hardly run into wildlife, and that they don't have any jobs. So people want more jobs in forestry, and the only way that more jobs will happen in forestry is if we do it in a different way. We need to do more value-added production and things like that. So there's a whole bunch of things that need to be looked at and changed.
Reno, when you're in the opposition, you could promise the world. The Green Party, an F. Isn't that a little bit harsh? Is this political or?
No, the Green Party gets it because they weren't able to get legislation adopted. And of course, part of the issue is that David Kuhn was alone in the legislature. We realize that, but we're just saying there was still no success, which means that we need to change the composition of the legislature. We need more people in the legislature that will support motions. Right now, having one member in the government, obviously he's not able to get the other parties on board, to support him on a motion.
Yeah, so
And
that's,
so we need to change, that it's not
It's a
an F
system.
for effort, it's an F
Yeah.
for
The
no
fact that
success.
we don't
Yeah.
have a specific motion that was tabled about this also. David was very supportive in terms of tabling the signatures and everything else. He knows, he realizes the issue. But again, there wasn't a specific stop spraying motion that was actually put in, right? There were things that were put in about the forestry management system, but not specifically about our issue. So, I mean, we have to be fair.
I would just like to say David would have needed a seconder for that motion.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Exactly.
There was a motion drafted.
Yes.
No one was willing to second
That's what I'm saying, the F, that's pretty harsh.
to stop, to ban spraying.
There was a specific motion that was tabled about stop.
Could not be
spraying.
tabled because we could not obtain a second.
Yeah.
That's the
So, I
problem.
mean,
But
This
did
is,
you get seconders for those other two motions?
yes, so we see Gilles
proposed two
LePage
other
was
motions.
very supportive, the PCs, Ross Wetmore as well. So again, we have to be fair. We can't just pick sides and say that, you know, okay.
I'm just looking
you
at
get
the F.
You get an A for effort. I mean,
No, but I'm just looking at the F liberal and F PC and F green. I mean, that's pretty harsh. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
that's,
look at the heading, it says
it's our objective.
to
Yeah.
pass legislation, and it hasn't happened, so the legislature failed on our issue. It's not a personal attack.
Or
It's just
it's not
that-
a party-specific attack. We also, the same thing, people question why we didn't include the People's Alliance there. Well, we can't include them, they're not in the legislature. It has nothing to do with it. If you're not in the legislature, you can't actually enact a
I mean,
piece of
it shows
legislation.
that, you know, having one great MLA who cares about a lot of the things that the people care about is not enough. We need more people elected like that. So, yeah, of course, we're hoping that we'll have more people elected in the next legislature that will then be supportive to an MLA that comes forward with an issue, you know, with a motion on an issue that a lot of people care about.
And also, none of the political parties have engaged with us directly in terms of developing a motion, right?
Like,
We
what
still
did you-
are waiting for somebody to call and say, let's sit down, let's draft a piece of legislation, because we'd be more than willing. And we've cooperated with any political party who has approached us on this.
So there's also other marks there on legislation tabled. So maybe you should look at that mark.
oh, I did, very closely.
So
I'm just looking at the
that's a much
comparison
better
with the
mark,
liberal and the
because
PC, that's all.
reflects- Well, we're trying to actually comment on what was done, right?
Yeah.
So we cannot give an A when nothing happened.
It could have had maybe a B or a C for, you can't compare the liberals, the conservative with the green. But anyway, that's my opinion, I'm sorry, I'm not a journalist, so, you
Well,
know,
David
just.
would have had a B, not a B minus, if he had stuck around for the vote on that motion, right? So.
Oh, that's when he had to go, he had to go to the dentist, I remember that, yes, I remember
So
that
we were
one.
kind of making a little joke with it, but
Okay.
the printer messed it up. Like, it was supposed to be a blurry B. So, but anyway, like, of course, we really appreciate what David Kuhn has done. It's got nothing to do with that. But the thing is, what
We need to
is
get a
illustrated
ban
is
put in
that-
place,
yeah.
and that's it, at the end of the day. So everything else below that is a fail. Right?
Just for the record, I wasn't gonna say nothing until I seen the marks there, and I said, okay, what's going on here?
But it's about results, right? We're looking at results.
When you only got one member, not to second it, you can't get result. But anyway, we got that straightened out. Next, wanna take over again? Take over.
Anything else?
Okay, great. Thanks for everybody coming out. All of our handout materials are right there.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Charles, you can't grab the large check.
Yeah, really.
Maybe get you guys to hold the check with you.
Yes, of course, yes.
This is why we make this.